Welcome to the Workforce Wire podcast, brought to you by Employ Prince George's, bridging the gap between job seekers and businesses. And now, here's your host, Walter Simmons.
Welcome to the Workforce Wire. This is your host, Walter Simmons, the president and CEO of Employ Prince George's. Today, we're going to discuss one of my favorite topics, returning citizens transitioning from prison to the community. But we're going to have a different spin. I don't want to have consultants and all these different people telling me what life is like. This series is called Walking in My Shoes. We're going to be talking directly with returning citizens who've been successful, who are changing our community, changing our world, and hear from their perspective, because that's the perspective that's probably the most important. Today, we have a special guest, Kiana Johnson, founder and executive director of Life After Release. Kiana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's an honor to be here today.
It's an honor for us to have you here. You know, we've seen you doing a lot of work in our community. And I first want to, as a workforce development podcast, as we introduce, please tell us, who is Kiana Johnson and how did you become the founder and executive director of your own organization, Life After Release?
Yes. So, Kiana Johnson here, and I am the founder and executive director of Life After Release. This is a community-based organization that is located in Prince George's County, Maryland. We are steadily expanding our scope to reach individuals not only in Prince George's County in the state of Maryland, but also in the District of Columbia and Virginia. So we're moving more into a regional DMV type of operation. The way that Life After Release became a vision of mine was through my own experience. In 2013, I had an experience in which I ended up convicted of a felony conviction, and during my time incarcerated was when I actually, the vision for Life After Release started to form. And upon my release in 2017, after serving 2.5 years of an 8.5-year sentence on a nonviolent crime, I immediately began working and articulating the different injustices and the different ways that the system operated, and putting that out into an actual organization that could capture and be a container for individuals who, like myself, had gone through the system and ended up on the other side of it. Before actually founding my organization and before my incarceration, I actually did 11.5 years as a federal government employee. I worked for several different federal government agencies, to include the Department of Veteran Affairs, Homeland Security, Export-Import Bank, the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, and a few others. So my work experience in my career before going to prison, and my experience around project management and administration was already there. It was now that, upon coming home, I had this barrier of, background issues that I had to now overcome. And I know that many others had to now overcome. So that is how Life After Release came to be.
So before we get into the after, let's get into the before. What factors do you think led to your incarceration, and could anything have prevented those actions?
My incarceration, and then that's where I became politicized, right? That's exactly where the point of my political education and the way that the system kind of worked I became aware of that during, not just the period of incarceration, but from the arrest and the way that the police officers talked to me, and the way the police officers did, and the things they did and did not do, and the way that the prosecutor showed up, and the way that the judges behaved. So it wasn't just like the incarceration for me that had an effect on me. But to answer your question, before my incarceration, like I said, I worked for the federal government, which required a top secret clearance in one of my positions. So I'd never had any type of involvement in the law. I didn't have criminal, quote unquote, criminal activity that was a part of my family tree. That I was the only person in my family to actually go into prison. I'm second generation immigrant to this country. My family migrated over here from Guyana and came over here with the presumption of the American dream and making sure education and working it, bootstrapping their way up and working their way, through a system to become successful was like something that was really, really a part of my family. So me going to prison was not only a shock for myself, but it was a complete shock for my family. And was it avoidable? I would say possibly no. I believe that it was a part of my actual. It was a part of my destiny. It was a part of something that I know that my Creator allowed me to go through so that I could become politicized, right? But as far as it was an interaction, of a business transaction, a business interaction that sent me to prison. So what I think people fail to realize is that they fail to realize that going to prison is some place that only monsters and murderers and rapists go. That's not the case. It was actually, operating a business and having a business transaction for a home, thinking that I was buying and purchasing a home is what sent me away. So, we have to be very careful of who we surround ourselves with, and this is what I teach the youth, because one thing that the prosecutor or the detective, I think it was the prosecutor, that made very clear to me was that it does not matter whether or not you are ignorant to a particular law, but you will be held accountable to it. And I think that is what really also sparked my interest in law. And now I'm studying law. Don't know if I'll make it all the way to the bar, but I am studying law because when that came to that revelation that children go to school and they learn math, they learn how to read, they learn economics in some spaces, they learn.
But they don't learn criminal justice.
But they don't learn criminal justice, right? And so to me, that bothers me because when that prosecutor said to me, I don't care what you know and what you don't know, and ignorance to the law is no exception for it, that stuck with me because I have two sons as well. As you know, Walter, I have two sons. My oldest son is 20 years old, and they just don't know a lot of things. And he's also a driver, right? So immediately I thought about my black son driving a car with his friend that gets in it, and unknowing to him, whatever activities his friend had been involved in, once he gets into his car, which is registered to me, by the way, once he gets into that car, he's no longer, he becomes liable.
Exactly. Yeah, the hand of one is the hand of all. That's something that I learned. I say to a lot of young people, Ray Lewis said it one time, you show me your immediate circle and I'll show you your immediate future. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And a point of my time in my life, my father told me he didn't want to be my friend. And I said, why? He said, because all your friends dead in jail. He said, wow. He said, so I don't know what you're doing or what circle you're in, but that's your future right now. And that was a changing point when your parent doesn't tell you wants to be your friend. But that's a conversation for a later day. What we're training people in school and your interactions in the criminal justice system. And I was a criminal justice minor at one point in time. I wanted to be a lawyer. That is a definitely conversation for another day. But I'm gonna just say rest in peace to George Floyd and everything that this country's going through. But we're gonna come back to that. Okay. Let's talk about it. You said it a little bit. I've had my instances and interactions with the justice system and how the justice system engages you immediately. I know a lot of times you feel like from day one you're already convicted. It's convicted until proven innocent. But while in prison, did the prison system prepare you for a successful return into society? And did they provide you with any assistance upon release?
Absolutely not. No. No. And I mean, and now is where we have to dig into and dive deeper to not only this prison system, but the disparities that exist for men and for women that are coming out of jail. I don't know if you were aware, but in the state of Maryland, there's only one prison for women.
I'm aware.
So that's one prison. So that means whether you steal a candy bar or you commit an act of murder, you will be incarcerated in this one place. That's different for men. That is Jessup, yes, okay. MCIW. That's different for men. Men have the opportunity to tier down or tier up depending on their level of crime or their behaviors, and they have something that they can work towards. They have maximum, medium, minimum, and pre-release statuses, and they also have those levels of incarceration and their freedoms and also trainings and things of that nature. But for women in particular, there is not even a pre-release center, which I've been in a fight for very, very long in the state of Maryland, which was passed but later vetoed by Hogan last general session. And that's important to know because what we are doing in this state is that we are taking the women directly from a prison setting and throwing them literally back into their communities, and that is a disservice, and it's an injustice to not only that individual, that woman, but it's also to the community because now this person then becomes a burden to the community because I am not equipped after being incarcerated to come home and to be a productive, inclusive member of my society. So I don't think people sit down and really digest that. I am now a burden to this community because I don't have the tools and the resource exactly that I need to contribute not only to my community but to my family because 80% of women who are incarcerated are mothers. They are primary caretakers of their homes. So now I have to come home and I don't have the way to take care of my family, and a lot of the times I probably have lost my children during this time. So I have an added burden to try to build myself back up that nobody is really paying attention to or making provisions for.
And that's key. You know, the United States Department of Justice reports that over 650,000 people are released from prison every year. But unfortunately, the United States Department of Justice also says that 2/3 of that 650,000 will return to jail within 2 to 3 years. And it sounds like, people say, I hate that people say, oh, well, they're criminals, and from your perspective, what it sounds like is, a lot of people are going to return because we didn't rehabilitate them. We housed them. And when we released them, they didn't have any new skills. And really, they've been put in reverse. I know I have a couple of friends that I talk to, and they really, people are just released and you got to report to the PO by a certain period of time, and you got to pay restitution if not. And we're like, well, what did they give you? They were like, they gave me what I came in with. What do you mean?
Exactly.
So I understand that, and that's a good point because that's something we need to address. As you say, being a burden to your community, to your family. What were your give me? What were your 2 or 3 greatest barriers upon returning home?
My greatest barrier in coming home was employment. As I stated, I had already had the education. I went in with college education. I went in with career experience working for the federal government. So it's not that I didn't have those skills to tap into upon my release. It was nothing that I had on being on the inside. But coming home was the immediate barrier for me was housing. And I just can't even fathom or even begin to think about if I did not have a mother who was capable, a mother who was not in addiction, or my mother actually works for the county. She is she works for the county, and she is very productive. And as I said, my family has been very, very supportive of my incarceration. But what if I did not have that? I had my mother's home to go and to kind of have a respite for a year, to kind of recover, to get a job, to make some connections, to do these things. But you're talking about a person to come home out from a jail cell, a prison cell, and then they're in the street. And if they don't have a family, and a lot of the times, most people that go into these places, they don't have a for supportive family to begin with. That's a lot of the reason why they did a lot of the things that they have done. So when they come home, a lot of their parents are dead, or they're in addiction, or they're unavailable, or they don't want to have anything to do with them. And so now this person has an immediate need of housing. So that is why Life After Release right now is on track to do transitional housing, and I actually pay for because I know that it's a need. Housing is an immediate need. It's not something that you can say, oh, well, just let me know how you do with that. Let me know, how that works out for you. That's not possible. In order for me to get up and go to work in the morning, I have to have some place to wake up from. I have to have a place to take a shower. I have to have a place to brush my teeth and all of these things. And that was an immediate barrier for me. However, it wasn't one as, for someone else who didn't have a supportive family. And then the second thing, of course, would be employment. But
hold on, Kiana, before you talk about employment, I just want to talk about minorities make up the greatest percentage of people incarcerated. Minorities also live in large metropolitan areas and on the opposite, vastly rural areas. So in a vastly rural area, there isn't a lot of public housing. There isn't a lot of housing options. Public housing is really geared towards Section 8 vouchers that landlords have registered with the local public housing authority, which a lot of times they discriminate against returning citizens. Second,
Absolutely.
In metropolitan areas, there's not allowed, even in Prince George's County, the District of Columbia, Alexandria, there's not a lot of available housing or low-income housing, and housing prices are astronomical. There's not a lot of shelters that can house the need. I just want to highlight when people say, oh, public housing, that is not always an option. One, public housing discriminates against you. Two, there's been a move to decrease public housing in America. There's been a move to alternate or to alter service strategies for homeless. So just know, for those listeners, public housing is not the answer, not the solution. So, Kiana, I'm sorry to jump in. I just wanted to stress that point.
No, and I just wanted to enhance what you were saying. And in my case, very shortly after coming home, I had got a job as a contractor. I actually worked for the county for a little while as he got a contracting position. So I had the job and I had the credit. But when I went to start applying for apartments, there's a box that exists. Prince George's County was very forward-thinking in removing the box, or supposed to be removing the box, from employment applications for folks who are returning. However, we're not so forward-thinking when it comes to housing. So now what we have in Prince George's County, which I would like to champion as far as like getting legislation passed similar to legislation in D.C., even if I have a job and I have the money, now I have a barrier of a box on a piece of paper that says, are you a convicted felon?
Exactly.
Have you had anything greater than a parking ticket in the past 7 years? So now what that says, fundamentally what that says is that you in this particular county, it's okay to put that box on there, and it's okay to tell people that if you are trying to get yourself together and live, that you are not eligible to have something in your name, which something like that can lead back to recidivism, because
Exactly.
Then now you're forcing me to go and commit an act that is not lawful. So now you're going to force me to go find somebody to get the apartment in their name for me, which is an illegal thing to do. But how do I live? And
so,
these are the things, when people say recidivate, they think, oh, she went back out there and stole another candy bar. But no, that's not what it is. What I did was I went and asked my cousin to put the apartment in her name for me so that I can live, and I got caught. Now I'm going back because I created another offense.
And I diverted you from that, but that's definitely a great point. What you said, the second greatest barrier was employment.
Yes, employment. Employment is the next greatest barrier. So often, we really have to check ourselves as our community and our brothers and our sisters keeper, because we can be our own worst enemy. I know that a lot of transitional homes that have tried to come into the area have been shunned out of communities and things of that nature because they not in my backyard is what we get. But we have a situation where individuals who want to have livable wages, they're told, oh, go get a job, but don't get a job that's worth anything. Don't have a job that has benefits. We need you to go work at McDonald's. We need you to go work as a waitress. We need you to not saying there's anything wrong with those jobs, but those jobs still are not something, and
not livable
something
wage.
I definitely wasn't. Yeah, it's not a livable wage, and something I definitely was not going to do. My skill set before I went to prison did not equate for me to work. I was overqualified and getting turned down for those type of jobs. So I surely was not going to come home and do that type of work, right? So
what was your turning point?
What was my turning point?
Yeah, you said like you know, because you talked about your background. Obviously, there was some turning point around the employment process. I'm assuming that for you to create your own.
Yeah, I kind of created my own opportunities when they weren't presented for me. And I went into the realm of organizing, which I never knew existed, which paid organizing, political organizing, and things of that nature, which, at the time, because, this topic is pretty sexy for folks, when they realized that I was formerly incarcerated, I started to create revenues of employment for myself. And then Life After Release began its own organization, started to take on its own form, and I was able to really be my own boss. And not everybody can do that. So those barriers, and another way I broke a barrier was to do contract work. And that's what I teach people is if you're having a hard time getting employment, go do contracting. Contracting work will allow for you to have the same type of jobs as individuals without actually going through their employment process. So it cuts out, they're the middleman, and usually these contract positions are filled. A lot of government agencies use contract positions, and local government agencies use contract positions. So if you have the resume and the skill set, if you go to a Randstad or if you go to a Sparks or something like that, they will put you on their roster, and they have really high turnover, and they're always looking for people. So if you present well, Employment Express and all these things, if you present well, you usually get a good opportunity really quickly, and then you will stay in that opportunity for a little while, and then they usually will offer you a job based on how you present in that position, because they've gotten a chance to know you, and so that's the way that I teach people how to break down that barrier of employment is through contract work.
So for those that don't know, what is a Randstad?
A Randstad is an employment agency. A Randstad is, they have one in Greenbelt, which is located in Prince George's County, and another one I think in Lanham.
Like a staffing company?
So it's a staffing agency, and it's a staffing agency where you go, you give them your resume, you tell them your skills, and a lot of the times they will not even ask you. And because in Prince George's County they're not allowed to ask you about your criminal background, they usually don't do that. And because the turnover is so high, they need a lot of people on their rosters, and they need a lot of people to present. So they're usually trying to sell themselves to companies. So you can play on that. And I teach people how to go into Fed Biz Ops and other government agencies to see who wins those contracts, right? And I teach them how to go on and to say, okay, this company, Busy Bee, won this contract to provide administrative support to all of Prince George's County. I'm going to go find out who the owner is of Busy Bee. I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with them. I'm going to put in my resume. So there's different ways your network is your net worth. I tell people that all the time. The way you present and the people that you know will always get you a job when you're a formerly incarcerated person.
Awesome. This is going to be, the next question is going to be a topic I want to give you at least about 4 or 5 minutes on. What can be done to help future returning citizens?
What can be done?
Well, you took a deep breath before that one.
Yeah, because that's a loaded question, and everybody thinks that it's a cookie cutter response, and everybody thinks they have they're looking for that golden ticket or that blueprint that just is going to capture everybody. That is the biggest mistake right there to saying or to attempting to help or attempting to support. I don't like the word help. I like the word support, because we need more support than anything else. We need support of our community. We need support of individuals. And I don't mean the passive, I hope you do well support. I mean the support of my organization or my government is going to set aside 25% of our lower level jobs that we can afford to put out there. In Prince George's County, there was a bill that was put in by Karen Tolles in 2013, and I will talk about this bill until it's passed. And she put that bill out there in 2013, asking Prince George's County to put their money where their mouth is. And I'm asking everybody that says that they want to support a person who was formerly incarcerated to come back into their community, to transpose your word from help to support and find a real way to support a person who is in that position. If you can't support them monetarily, then you can support them through passing legislation that says, or your organization can say, I'm putting 2 positions aside. These particular 2 positions are for people who are returning, and my organization is going to invest in this position in this real way, right? It's not enough to help me with my resume anymore. It's not enough for you to write me a letter of recommendation anymore. It is now time for tangible support to show up in the forms of, like I talked about, the bill Karen Tolles put forth in Prince George's County that was turned down by the council at the time, that shunned away, that asked Prince George's County to say, hey, look, if this is something that you value, and this is something that, this is a low level, this is low-hanging fruit. I mean, even in her bill, it stated that she wanted to have nonviolent offenders be the only ones that could benefit from that, which I would shun that at this point, because I feel like everybody should have a chance, right? So putting aside 25% of the jobs of lower-level jobs in Prince George's County, the picking up of the trash, which, by the way, is done by individuals who are incarcerated when they're incarcerated. But when they come home, they're not good enough, or they're not seen worthy enough to have those same jobs that were set aside for you when you were giving it free labor.
So what else? So now what else, just to keep, just not to stay on that one, what else do you think can be done?
In addition to transposing yourself from a helping standpoint to a supportive one.
Go ahead and say it, Kiana. Let's be real. We don't want lip service.
Yeah, we the time has come and gone. Later are the days for that. We were losing when we do that only, and that's why I respect and I admire you as a leader in the community and in Prince George's County, because you are abreast of what we need, and I really am appreciative of the work that you do and how you do it in a real way. So other than being supportive and really not doing lip service, once we do that, we will start to see ourselves moving, right? We will start to see ourselves moving in a real way that's just not about, a couple of numbers that's transpired on a report, but really like real life stories that we can tap into and really start to support our community. That's
real. I also, there's a lot more that we can do. Prince George's, Employ Prince George's is, we're putting a penny into a bank account as we're trying to save 100,000. So it's the start, but it does take work. I do want to shout out the mayor of Hyattsville, Mayor Hollingsworth, Candace Hollingsworth. Follow her, everybody, all the listeners. We did a program with her because I always said that we can't say ban the box and we can't say we're a supportive government for returning citizens and not hire returning citizens. We did a pilot program, the Clean and Safe Ambassadors in the city of Hyattsville, where they carved out 5 positions. And it was solely for returning citizens, solely for people who were high school dropouts, solely for people who had been convicted of crimes in the city of Hyattsville. And she said, hey, I don't want to put people in jail. I want to give them opportunities so they can better our community and not take away. We ended up hiring, I think, more than 5 people. And one of the gentlemen had been incarcerated for 30 years. And one thing that stuck with me, Kiana, he said, for 20, 30 years, I tore down my community. And through this opportunity of working with the city of Hyattsville, working for the city of Hyattsville as a clean and safe ambassador, where they cleaned up areas, did beautification, monitored the arts and business district. He said, this is the first time in my life that I'm building my community and not tearing it down. And that speaks to exactly, but that only happened because Mayor Hollingsworth said, I'm going to advocate for returning citizens. She got funding passed through her city council. Her city council approved it. And we want to take that program to every municipality and county government, state government in Prince George's County and Maryland, because I feel like that's what you're talking about. But you got to have a champion like Mayor Hollingsworth. That's not lip service. She put money behind it, and it changed people's lives. So I just want to shout out, because that is what we call leadership. But Kiana, there's people listening to this podcast. There's people that are engaging, that are returning citizens, that are struggling. As someone, and I want to commend you and congratulate you. Life After Release is doing great work in the community. I've seen Kiana. We talked for a couple of years. Kiana's going to be working more and more with Employ Prince George's. You are a success. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. But what would you say, what essential tip would you give to somebody who is 90 days from release or is fresh out, and they're looking up at this 80-foot brick wall and they don't have a ladder?
What I will say is, and what Life After Release is starting to do is we are switching our approach to an inside-out approach, is that we are starting to get newsletters and things inside of the community, behind the walls, so that they can be with us along the way of their incarceration. They can start to write us letters, and we can start to give them input, because reentry starts not the day of your release, but the day that you are sentenced. So the day that you are received your sentence and the day that you start your sentence is the day that reentry should begin. And so I think that people lose foresight of that, and they want to start doing it 90 days out or the year. No, it needs to start. It needs to be ingrained in every part of the process of being rehabilitated. So it's definitely something that Life After Release, and I also encourage Employ Prince George's to start to have an inside-out approach. And I know Mr. Goodson is very good and very well known for doing that, is to be a part of that person as they are incarcerated, not just 90 days upon their release. They should be in community.
So what would you say to them? What would you say to that person?
What I would say to them is that it can be done, that your biggest obstacle to yourself is you, and that, nothing in this world was done overnight, and that it will be a process. But as long as you stay the course, as long as you allow yourself to be wrapped up in support, that you will be just fine. And to reach out to me, to reach out to me and to others, and to make sure that you have a support system, right? Even me, myself, I still have a very good support system, both in my family and in my community, that lifts me up and that says, I have my moments where I want to quit, I want to give it all away, and I just want to be done with everything. But, I don't have that luxury. I don't have that privilege of doing that. So I have to get up and I have to show up every day. And so, just to let them know that there are organizations out here that really want to love and support you. You just have to find them.
It doesn't get any better than that. I have a brother right now who's incarcerated, and one thing I told him, he's in the middle of doing 4 or 5 years. I said, what has been done in the past, you can't help. It's over. What your sentence that's been handed down, there's nothing you can do. It is what it is. But you can only be in charge and control what happens from here on. And I said, and you have 4 years to come out and be better than who you were before. You have 4 years to plot and plan and strategically identify the steps you need to be successful. I said, that is what you control. And Kiana, you're right. Your greatest obstacle is yourself. And that's for all of us. And Kiana, I want to say thank you for being a guest. How can people learn more information about Life After Release?
Absolutely. So you can do we have a hashtag. Life After Release is our hashtag. You can follow our hashtag on any social media platform. We're also on Twitter, Life After Release MD. We are on Instagram, Life After Release. We are on Facebook, Life After Release. We actually have a support group on Facebook as well, and we're getting ready to launch our Welcome Homes giving support circle. So, you can find us. You can, if you need to email me, you could do so. My email address is, it's Kiana, Qiana, @lifeafterrelease.com. employprince.org. And if you need to reach out to us immediately, because we are providing families in Prince George's County who are formerly incarcerated, if you're formerly incarcerated, or if you have a family member that is currently incarcerated, we want to help you by providing you with mutual aid support. And what that looks like groceries. We are getting ready to start providing individuals with laptops since we're moving to more of a virtual operation, and throughout the world. So we want to be able to have people connected, right? So we want to be able to give you Chromebooks, if we can have a conversation and see what your needs are and assess that. So if you need that, you can also call us directly at 240-200-4472, and we can get you to fill out the information that we need to be able to provide you with mutual support if you are formerly incarcerated or you have a family member that is experiencing incarceration right now.
Awesome. And if you want to learn more information about Employ Prince George's, visit us at www.employpg.org. That's www.employpg.org. We have our reentry program called Pathways to Success. Shout out to Pete Goodson, our reentry coordinator, Erica Simmons, our reentry career consultant, doing great work in our community. I appreciate you all. Salute to everybody. Thank you, Kiana Johnson, founder and executive director of Life After Release. This has been the Workforce Wire and our special series, Walking in My Shoes, transitioning from prison to the community. That's it for the Workforce Wire. Stay tuned, keep listening, stay educated, stay engaged, and stay empowered, everybody.